it's Doug Levy from TapGoods. We're about to launch some new functionality and I'm excited to share it with you. So the functionality is designed to make it easier to create orders, particularly complex orders with multiple headers or sections, and orders where you want to be able to show precisely how something looks to a customer. So this functionality largely exists in the system prior to this release, but the functionality was in the display tab. So you would create an order using kind of the primary section, the details section, to create that order, and then go to the display tab to organize that inventory or specify how you wanted it to look for the customer. Now, that functionality's moved from the display tab into the order creation process in the details tab, the primary tab, so you can just essentially create how you want that inventory to show up while you're actually creating the order the first time. It's designed to streamline and reduce the number of steps involved in creating an order. This, by the way, particularly talking about having different headers or sections, can work regardless of the inventory type you have. So for instance, if you rent party rentals, you might want to think about different pieces of that event. For instance, a ceremony and reception for a wedding. If you're doing AV or production rentals, you might want to think about different areas of or rooms where an event's taking place. If you're doing tool or equipment rental, you might want to be able to show different areas of a job site. Regardless of the type of inventory, basically the functionality can be useful to you. So let's jump in. The example that we're going to look at today is a party rental company, and in specific a wedding. So the first step of the order creation process is the order details page, just as it is now, where you have a start and end date, you specify a customer, you pick the delivery method, and then move over to items and staffing. And that's where this looks a little bit different. By the way, if you don't want to use the headers or any of this functionality, you don't have to. So it works just as you did before. And if you don't create multiple sections, just add inventory and add the inventory items just like you have before. But if you do want to create sections, you can do that as part of the order creation process. So I'm going to share with you how that works. So let's say the first thing we want to do is think about our different sections, and we might want to have sections based on, again, this wedding. And we have, let's say, a ceremony section, and then I'm going to click add section and create a new section called reception. There we go. And by the way, you can keep adding sections. You get as many as you want. Okay. And then we're going to think about what we want in each of these sections. So in the first one, in ceremony, let's say we need chairs for our ceremony. And so I'm going to put 200 chairs for the ceremony right there. And then for the reception, let's say that we need 20 of these tables and 20 linen, and I'm going to add that to the order. Okay, obviously you'd have a lot more, but just showing you this as an example. So now what you can do, you can see the inventory for these different sections, and over here you can see display options that you have. Again, this existed previously under the display tab, but now you can specify it as you're creating the order using these toggles. So you might want to decide whether or not to show images or notes to customers, whether to show individual inventory pricing or discounts, whether to show subtotals for each of these sections or categories, and whether to show tax breakdown by line item or not. So you can toggle each of these on or off, and then you can see how this is showing up in the sections. Another thing you can do, by the way, is if you click over here, you can see this idea of duplicate, and particularly applicable for something like this. So let's say you have, I'm going to just show you. So you have a duplicate of this chair, and essentially you can see duplicate here. It creates an alias that can then be moved. So for instance, let's say that you move this down here. You want to use the same chairs for section 1, the ceremony, but then move them to the reception, which makes sense because these are happening at different times and you're using the same inventory at multiple times, the ceremony and the reception. That's how this could work. So that's the idea of duplicate. There was previously the concept of split, where you had, let's say, the same inventory item, but it's used some portion of the quantity in one section or another. We no longer need to have that as a separate call out like we did prior, but instead you can just add the inventory. So you might have 100 chairs here and 100 chairs there, where it's going to be used at the same time but in different sections. Instead of having to split it, you can essentially split it just by adding inventory to the different sections. So that's some of the functionality. Now I'll share one other thing with you, and again, this exists today. Under your settings and then order settings, you can see down here display settings. And so the way this works is, let's say you might want to by default create different sections based on inventory type, category, or department, and automatically create headers. Just flip that there. Then that'll by default create those sections for you automatically. As you're creating a new order, you can then change them. So that's some of the new functionality. Essentially, in short, it's just made to make it easier and quicker, fewer steps and clicks, to, while you're creating an order, allow for that complexity of how you want the order to show up by section, with headers, and with some of the details toggled on or off while you're creating the order. So hope that's helpful and hope you enjoy.